Well, here we are again. It's another year where the Hockey Hall of Fame announces their class, and it's another year where Rod Brind'Amour is left out. Feels like Groundhog Day all over again, as I talked about this last year. And of course, Jared, the previous host, also talked about this, and it's time to run it back one more time. And we're going to discuss why Rod Brind'Amour should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everyday for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers, also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all of my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. On the Wednesday edition of pod, we are going to be talking about this man right here, if you're on the YouTube side of it, Rod Brind'Amour, and why he should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Should have been in it last year, definitely should be in it this year. Going to go over why in both instances and why he needs to be a part of the 2026 Hockey Hall of Fame class. But before we dive into Rod Brind'Amour and the Hockey Hall of Fame, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So, 2025 class was announced on Tuesday, and it has a bunch of first ballot guys getting into the Hall of Fame. Duncan Keith, Zdeno Chara, also Jennifer Botterill gets in, Brianna Decker, and also Joe Thornton gets in as the other first timer. And finally, after a long time, is Alexander Mogilny. And all the guys on this list, I think Mogilny is definitely one of the ones that is deserving most to get in. And then in terms of the builders is Jack Parker and Danielle Sauvignon. And that is your class. Now, when it comes to Chara, Keith, and Thornton, I can understand with a lot of those guys. Keith, multi-cup winner. Chara, won a Stanley Cup. Was one of the most feared and dominant defensemen in his time. And, of course, Jumbo Joe. Well, is Jumbo Joe. Everyone really loves the guy. 1,500 points in 1,700 games, over 1,100 assists. Did win an Art Ross. Did win a Hart Trophy. And was a 4-time All-Star and played 24 years in the league. So, yeah, a very long career going from being 18 in Boston in 1997-98 to being 42 with the Florida Panthers in the 21-22 season. So, Joe Thornton, not really upset about that one. Like I said, great to see Alexander Mogilny finally get his shot. And, of course, no surprise, Keith, Chara, all of them getting in, and of course, women's hockey side of things, Botterill, and of course, Brianna Decker. And of course, you can't be wrong with the builders. The only thing is, Rod Brind'Amour once again gets snubbed out of another Hockey Hall of Fame induction. I said this last year, it still makes no sense why he's not in when you look at guys with other stats who are in the Hall of Fame, but somehow Rod Brind'Amour isn't. We can all look back at last year's class, even when you look at Shea Weber gets in. I know defense in different positions, but you look at Shea Weber, though, he was a 4-time All-Star and won a Messier Award. And that was it. That's all he won, but he gets in as a first ballot Hall of Famer. Then you look at Jeremy Roenick, and of course, Roenick, yes, 1,200 points, 1,363 games, 92 game-winning goals. I can see why a lot of people are going to say that because, yes, in terms of he had, a little bit more points than what Rod Brind'Amour finished with, but he also played in less games than Brind'Amour. And the thing with Jeremy Roenick is, he got in. Congratulations to him. It is what it is. But my thing with that is Jeremy Roenick didn't win any awards. And I think that's the thing that kind of is just surprising to me the most is the fact that he got in on because there's people are going to be saying, oh, it's because of the stats. Well, it's based on the stats. Why isn't Brind'Amour in? And that's my only thing, because if you look at other draft classes, I mean, Daniel Alfredsson, 1,157 points, right around where Brind'Amour had. Alfredsson got into the 22 draft class. Both of the Sedin brothers got in, and they both finished with 1070 and 1041 in points. Brind'Amour had 1184. And you keep going back, you keep going back. You look at all these guys that have gotten in, and it's kind of wild to me that you say, okay, well, it's based on points, it's based on trophies. And I'm not taking anything against the guys who got in. Hey, you got in, you got in. I mean, hey, Marty St. Louis got in with 1,033 points. Or, this, and, this, that, or yeah. Like, even, it's just, what does it really give for a guy like Rod Brind'Amour to get in when you see, like, a Shea Weber first time, Jeremy Roenick first time? And there's a bunch, like I said, there's a bunch of other Hall of Famers who are in there. Like I said, everyone's deserving to get in. But what are we basing the merits on? Because, like I said, you look back at it, I mean, Sergei Fedorov got in the 2015 class with 1,178 points. And of course, he did it in 1,248 games. And you look at Brind'Amour, he had 1,184 points in 1,484 games. But like I said, you look at all these other guys who are in, and you're like how can you say it's, oh, well, it's because of stats or awards or all these other things? I'm like, but you look at what Rod Brind'Amour has done. We'll talk more about this in segment 2. He's got the numbers, regular season and postseason, of why he should have gotten in. And he's also got the awards. So for me, it's what is the giving factor for Brind'Amour to still not be in, but you can look at all these other guys who have gotten in, and it's fine. Like, that's my only thing. It's like, if we're gonna base off of actual conclusive reasoning for guys to get in, then sure. Like I said, Alexander Mogilny, Cup winner, 2-time All-Star, won the Bing. 1,032 points in 990 games, and somehow this was the year he gets in. That's the insane part to me, too, about Rod Brind'Amour being left out. That it took Alexander Mogilny until this draft class to get in. Both of those guys should have been in it last year together, at least, or they've already should have been in a long time ago. And that's my point. There's no reason why other players should have gotten in before a guy like Alexander Mogilny, who was well above a point per game in his own, not even in a season, in his own career. And then look at what Brind'Amour has done. Multi-Selke winner, won a cup. 20 years in the league. You look at his stats. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, what is, like, I want a proper reasoning. Like we should definitely get, like you see with, Baseball Hall of Fame and all this, like, you get the votes. You see, hey, some guys announce their votes. Hey, this is the percentage you need to get in. But it's like, there's no transparency of how do you get in. I know there's a committee, but it's like, what's the standard? And I think that's kind of what a lot of hockey fans want to know is, like, what is the standard? What is the numbers to get in? Like, what's the measuring stick? Because, like you said, Mogilny took forever to get in. Rod Brind'Amour is still left out, and there's a lot more guys coming on the 2026 class. That's going to make it very interesting for him next year. And my thing is, what's the threshold? Because you guys got, like, Weber gets in, Roenick gets in, all these other guys who've got, Alfredsson's gotten in, and you look at their points and how many games they've played, and it's like, but Brind'Amour has those. But compared to Weber won a Messier Award. Roenick didn't even win an award, and he got it on points and what his career numbers were. But Brind'Amour has gotten actual trophies. Nothing against the Messier Award, but it's not an award where it's like, okay, here's a Selkie, or here's a Hart, or here's a Calder, or here's a Cup winner, you know, and Conn Smythe, stuff like that. So that's the kind of crazy part for me is like, what more can Rod Brind'Amour do? So that being said, why should he be in the Hall of Fame? And we're talking numbers and trophies. Well, stick around and I'll explain why here in a second on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra and Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiet Ready. Rougiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast. On average, in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours. So you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rougiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. You can even read real customer reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. Head to Rougiet.com/LockedOnAHL and use code LockedOnAHL to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnAHL and use promo code LockedOnAHL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please Rougiet website for full safety information. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Well, we talked about the 2025 class who got in, why I gave some of my thoughts on why it's kind of questionable of why some have gotten in over Rod Brind'Amour. And then we're going to talk about why Rod Brind'Amour should already be in the Hockey Hall of Fame, or at least should have been in the 24 or the 25 class. So you look at Rod Brind'Amour's numbers, and that's the thing. A lot of it is, well, Jeremy Roden got it because of his numbers, or this guy got it because of his stats in his career, and this, that, and the other. Roden played 20 seasons. Jumbo Joe played a little while as well. Shea Weber played a lot of seasons. Rod Brind'Amour played 20 seasons as well in the NHL. But here's the thing, though. 1,484 games, 452 goals, 732 assists, which comes out to 1,184 points. And this is the real kicker here. His career faceoff percentage, how about 59.4%? That is why he is revered as one of the best faceoff guys in the league, and rightfully so with that kind of percentage. 149 power play goals, 28 shorthanded goals, and 67 game-winning goals. And this is all within the regular season. Here's the crazier part. In terms of playoff games, 51 goals, 60 assists for 111 points, and 159 playoff games. Also on top of that, why he had a great faceoff percentage? Well, that translated into him being a back-to-back Selke winner. How about 2005, 2006 when the team won the Cup, and then 2006, 2007. That's right. Rod Brind'Amour won back-to-back Selke trophies. One of them was in the year where they won the Stanley Cup. Oh, and speaking of the Stanley Cup, yeah. How about a 2006 Stanley Cup champion? So when you hear all those stats and even the accolades on top of it, this is why it's so mind-boggling how Rod Brind'Amour is still not in over a guy who won a Messier Award in Weber and a guy who never got an award in Jeremy Roden. And like I said, not trying to take away, hey, you got in. It is what it is. But you can't look at that type of situation where it's, you look at a defenseman like Weber who was okay. He won a Weber, yeah, or he won a Messier, and he was a 4-time All-Star. Great for him. You look at Jeremy Roenick. He never won an award, but he had the stats. Okay, that's great. He had the stats. But you can't look at those two instances and even look at what Daniel Alfredson's points were. I mean, nothing, like I said, nothing against Alfredson and all these other guys, but you can't say, okay, well, it's the stats. It's the numbers. Brind'Amour's got the numbers. I'm sorry to say this, but if you have a guy in Brind'Amour who has almost 1,200 points in 1,484 games, I'm sorry, yeah, he has 300 less points than games played. That's still pretty impressive for the fact that he was in that many games played of 1,484 to have 1,184 points. That's really impressive. And the fact that he had over 450 goals and over 730 assists. Career faceoff percentage is almost 60%, almost 150 power play goals, almost 30 shorthandeds, and almost 70 game winners. And that's just regular season alone. Okay, then you want to talk playoff stats? Okay, well, we talked about playoff stats. Over 50 goals, 60 assists, over 110 points in almost 160 playoff games. Okay, there's numbers. Okay, accolades. Well, the guy needs accolades to get in as well. I'm sorry, back-to-back Selke is pretty dang good if you ask me, if you look at it that way. I know Patrice Bergeron's going to be up for the 2026 class, and it feels like he's going to be a first ballot. No sweat about that, because how many Selkes has he won in his career? And honestly, I mean, Patrice Bergeron should get in because that's a lot of Selkes for a guy like that. But my point being is, if Bergeron's going to get in next year for a lot of his accolades, then Brind'Amour should get in for his as well. Maybe he didn't win as many as Patrice, but you still can't deny a guy who won a back-to-back Selke trophies, and one of them was in a cup-winning year. And yeah, Brind'Amour has won a cup. Two guys got in last year who didn't have their own accolades and didn't win the Stanley Cup. Brind'Amour's got the accolades, won the cup as the captain, and has got the stats. So that's what I'm saying. What's the argument? What's the threshold? That's why the transparency in the Hockey Hall of Fame needs to be put out there. You see it for baseball. Hey, you need this many votes to get in. These are the numbers. Some guys even reveal their votes. I'm not saying people have to put their votes out or however the committee does it, but give us the transparency of why these guys get in and why these guys don't. Like I said, McGillivray didn't get in. He was well over a point per game for his career. And he won trophies. So how's Brind'Amour still not in? And that's my whole question. Give me the reasoning. Give me what's the threshold. What are you looking for a guy to get in? Stats? Okay, well, Brind'Amour's got the stats. 300 less points than games played. A lot of guys can't say that they can have numbers close to that. Game winners, power play, shorthandeds, almost a 60% face-off percentage. Okay, what's the next thing? Oh, accolades? Selke, back-to-back. Stanley Cup champion as the captain. And the thing is, he's still, I mean, I know we're not talking post-career, but he's been in Carolina for 25 years now. Why is he not in? That's my whole thing. Why are these other players getting in who've played in the National, but Brind'Amour still isn't? That's my whole thing. Give me the reasoning. Give me the transparency of why Brind'Amour is still not in with that type of resume. When guys who have lesser resumes who are getting in on points, but Brind'Amour's got both. That's my thing. That's what I think. That's what a lot of Hurricanes fans want to know. What's the reasoning? Give us what you're looking for so we can have an actual argument instead of just guessing of like, why is he not in? Tell us why he's not in. Give us the reasoning why he's not. Give us what you're looking for in terms of your standards. That's all we ask for. Just give us transparency. But Who knows if we'll ever get that, but I know the next thing is the 2026 Hall of Fame class next year. There's going to be a lot of new names, and of course, names like Brind'Amour who are still waiting to get the call. And what could that look like? Well, stick around and we'll talk about the 2026 class as we look ahead here in a second on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. All right, well, we talked about why, Rod Brind'Amour got left out of the 25 class, why he should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Now, let's talk about the 2026 Hall of Fame class that's coming up next year. So we're going to do a little bit of a looking into the future a little bit and see what Rod Brind'Amour could be looking at and who is going to be available or eligible in the 26 class. So here are the new candidates that will be first-time ballot guys on this list. First one, Patrice Bergeron, already talked about him. I feel like this is going to be a slam dunk one for the Hall to put him in. I mean, Patrice Bergeron, he's a guy who played 19 seasons with the Boston Bruins and won the Stanley Cup in 2010, 2011. And like I said, he's pretty much a near lock for his first year eligibility. You're talking a guy who won the Selke Trophy 6 times in his career, also won the King Clancy, given to the best player who exemplifies leadership qualities in 2012 and 13, and of course also got the Mark Messier Leadership Award. Also a member of the Triple Gold Club when it comes to winning a cup, winning an Olympic gold medal, and a world championship. So safe to say with Bergeron's 427 goals, 1,040 points in 1,294 games, including 128 points in 170 playoff games, it goes to show that Patrice Bergeron, most likely a solid lock to getting into next year's class as a first ballot. Another guy that's going to be on the list is Phil Kessel, 413 goals and 992 points in 1,286 games. And, of course, play with the Bruins and then also with the Leafs, Penguins, and stuff like that, of course. He did win back-to-back cups with the Penguins, going back to, all of that. And then, won the third Stanley Cup with the Vegas Golden Knights in the final year of his career. And he also has 83 points in 100 playoff games. And he also does hold the record for the Ironman streak with 1,064 consecutive games. This is where I think most likely because of the fact that Phil Kessel has almost 1,000 points, has 3 Stanley Cups, no individual hardware, but also for the fact that he also does hold the Ironman streak. That could be the most interesting one of does Phil get in first try or is this going to be a second or third ballot opportunity for him? That's kind of where I think it's a big question mark, but 3 cups might get him a little bit more of the favor there. Another person, well, how about Eric Stahl? He will be actually, for his first time on the ballot. Of course, we all know 100-point season with the Carolina Hurricanes in his rookie year. Won the Stanley Cup in 05-06 with the team. He is also the franchise leader in 909 games played, 322 goals, 453 assists, and 775 points. And he's also, of course, everyone knows the Hurricanes Hockey Hall of Fame and got his number retired. Overall for his career, though, 455 goals, 1,063 points in 1,356 games. And, of course, we all know his postseason, 64 points in 104 games, 6-time All-Star, and was also part of the Canada's 2022 Winter Olympic team that was in Beijing, of course, because he wasn't a player at the time. He was able to go do that. Does he get in first ballot? Well, he does have a cup, and he's a 6-time All-Star. Maybe. I'm not 100% even on Eric Stahl. Phil Kessel and Eric Stahl might be the 2 guys that may or may not get in first ballot. Maybe second or third they might get in possibly. But wouldn't that be kind of sweet justice, though? We're like, all right, Rob, we're going to hold you off a little bit. Oh, hey, Eric Stahl's up. Boom, there you go. Both of you are going in together. I mean, it'd be great. I mean, who would love to see Eric Stahl and, Rod Brind'Amour get in together to the Hockey Hall of Fame? That would be very interesting to see if that worked out. But not really sure because, like I said, Rod Brind'Amour's got individual awards and a cup, but he's not in, and Eric Stahl has a cup and 6 All-Stars. Who's to say? Phil Kessel might have a better shot for the fact that he has 3 Stanley Cups and he won back-to-back with the Penguins. So maybe. And like I said, Patrice Bergeron, first ballot, that's a serious lock. Another guy, Carey Price, he was eligible for this year, didn't get in. I think Carey Price gets in next year. There's no reason why he's not in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Patrick Marleau will enter his 3rd year of eligibility, and he might get in for the 26 class. That should be really interesting to see how that works out, especially for a guy who played 23 regular season games or 23 years in the NHL, 566 goals, 1,197 points, and was a 3-time All-Star. So there is a possibility for Marleau on his 3rd year. We'll see. Henrik Zetterberg for the Red Wings. He's a potential to get in. That should be very interesting to see how that works out for him. Of course, the fact he would join guys like Pavel Datsyuk and all that, and who knows? There could be an opportunity for Zetterberg to get in. Ryan Getzlaf, former captain of the Anaheim Ducks, does he get in next year? Possibly. We'll have to see how that works out for him. And, of course, others that have eligibility, of course, we know Sergei Gonchar, Jason Spezza, Curtis Joseph, which I'm kind of surprised Cujo still isn't in yet, Keith Tkachuk, which is even more insane that Keith isn't in, and then Ryan Miller, and, of course, everyone knows Rod Brind'Amour. Now, they had 6 players get in, and 4 of them were in the NHL. So, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in terms of how many gets in. Because like I said, when you have a first ballot class of Bergeron, Kessel, Stahl, along with Price, Marleau, Zetterberg, and Getzlaf, that's a pretty strong 7 right there of just guys who are returning for a second ballot or returning again, who are, those ones are going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. Of course, you got the 3 new ones. And then, of course, like I said, you already have Brind'Amour, Gonchar, Spezza, Cujo, Keith Tkachuk, and Ryan Miller already on there. I'm not saying it's going to be easy for Brind'Amour to get in, but if they're going to have Eric Stahl on a ballot and they're thinking about maybe putting him in, I think Rod should get in. Even if they don't put Eric Stahl in, I still think they should put Rod Brind'Amour in. It should... Honestly, if you're asking me my right now selections, at least just starting off with, it's got to be Brind'Amour automatic. You got to get him in. I would say it would have to be Carey Price and at least Patrice Bergeron. It should be Bergeron, Price, Brind'Amour at least as your 3 to get in. I would even say go to Getzlaf and Cujo. There's your 5 players who I think could possibly get in. If you're asking me right now on June 25th, who could those guys be? I think it's those ones right there. But at the very least, Rod Brind'Amour should be in the 2026 Hall of Fame class, with or without Eric Stahl going in with him, if Stahl even has a relative chance to get in. Just on the merit alone of Brind'Amour's regular season stats, his playoff stats, winning a cup as a captain, and winning back-to-back Selke trophies. It's a shame that he missed out last year, especially with the 2 guys who got in. And he misses out again this year, which is still crazy to think that we got a bunch of first ballots getting in, but not Brind'Amour, who's still been up again. At least McGillney finally got in. But honestly, I felt like McGillney and Brind'Amour should have gotten in last year, and they both should have gotten in this year. So it'll be interesting to see where we're at by this time next year if I'm doing this video once again talking about why Rod Brind'Amour needs to be in. But hopefully, maybe it's a different tune. Maybe we will be celebrating Rod Brind'Amour getting into the Hall of Fame next year, but only time will tell. Well, guys, this will be a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first listen of the day. Here's the Locked On NHL podcast. While there is no offseason, we will be bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter the most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. If you want to keep up with me, I'm at @OneTrueZach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky, the Zachary Martin, where I do have link trees in my bio, so where you can find all of my written content at thehockeywriters.com. If you want to check out my other podcast, well, it's the Searchcast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For Locked On Hurricanes, we're on Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcast. Leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, well, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notifications so you don't miss a show. Hit the thumbs up to let me know if you like the show as well. Share it with other Canucks to become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Enjoy your Wednesday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.